And welcome back. As you can see, we're looking at the engine compartment of our Project X, our red Ram, otherwise known as Candy Apple. And as stated in previous video, we are going to be doing a transmission service today in this video on this Ram. What we're going to do is drop the pan, change out at least the fluid that we can get out of the pan, and whatever else will kind of slowly drip out of the transmission. Put two new filters on it. These particular Rams, if you're unfamiliar, have a screw-on type filter as well as the normal transmission filter you're used to seeing. So they've got two internal filters, so we're changing both those out plus the fluid. Now, it won't be a complete fluid replacement, mind you, because there's still plenty of fluid left over in the torque converter and within the transmission lines and the transmission cooler, but we're going to let it drip and at least get out as much as we can, because what we want to do is drop the pan and get an ideal of the health of the transmission in this truck. In other words, do we see any chunky pieces? Do we see chunks of clutch material, any other type of debris in there that shouldn't be in there? Or do we just see general normal wear and tear? Like it's normal to drop the pan and see some accumulation of clutch material, because after all, this is a 2012. The transmission does have a little over about 120,000 miles on it at this point. So what we're looking for is any indication that we've got, you know, bigger issues or mechanical damage, so that way when we're pulling the engine and we're doing the engine rebuild, if we have to pull the transmission, it's easier, since we're going to have the engine out, to go ahead and pull the transmission and drop in a purpose-built unit. But we'll get to that here shortly. Hopefully we won't have to replace the transmission, but if we do, heck, again, we'll bring you along, and it'll should make for a quite interesting video. But in this one, we're going to get started. We went ahead and removed our dipstick, just so that we're not fighting the end of the dipstick when trying to drop the pan on this. And just to show you, the fluid doesn't look terrible. It came out more red than it did brown. And what you're seeing here is after absorbed into the paper towel a little bit. So it's kind of still maybe like a pinkish, light orange, brown, maybe a light brown, light orange type color. So it's not horrible. It's not dark, at least what came off the stick. So it'll be interesting once we get the pan dropped, what we see. Now, as we stated in a previous video, I'll show this to you here. We're going to put a 4x4 pan on this two-wheel drive truck. So we're going to remove the two-wheel drive pan, which is a little bit more shallow than this, and replace it with a four-wheel drive pan you see here. This pan actually came off of our 2016 2500 4x4, and we're going to put it on this one. So it's going to allow us a little bit more fluid capacity than what would come in a standard two-wheel drive pan, but with the caveat being we're going to have to come in here and go with a four-wheel drive pump filter. And this is a little bit different than a two-wheel drive filter, because that little snorkel that reaches down into the fluid on this one is actually a bit longer than what it would be in a two-wheel drive system. So if you're going to use a four-wheel drive pan on a two-wheel drive unit, you have to get the appropriate filter that goes with the four-wheel drive pan. Otherwise, you run the risk of, even if you have the appropriate amount of fluid in the pan, the filter for the transmission pump won't set down low enough to suck up fluid, and you'll end up starving the transmission of fluid at that point, which would be bad. So yeah, and we do have a little bit of surface rust in here. Don't worry, it's just surface rust. As you can see, I can wipe it off with my finger. We'll get all that cleaned out of there and get all this old RTV off. We're going to go, and you can see it actually just peels off fairly easily. As you can see here, we're going to go with a Wix filter kit. That is the part number there. It's the Wix 58843. So this is a four-wheel drive Ram 1500 4th gen kit. It comes with the transmission pump filter, as well as the new filter that goes into the pump body, or I should say the gasket, the rubber seal that goes into the pump body right there. It also comes with a the rubber pan seal, which we'll be using this in lieu of using RTV. I know the manual says just to seal this up with a bead of RTV, but I don't like using RTV on these pans. I've seen more often than not where even the beads of RTV on these pans tend to leak over time. I know a lot of people, some people, I shouldn't say a lot, but I know that some transmission specialists don't like these rubber seals, but I'm going to use this rubber seal anyway. And don't worry, this particular build, when we do the engine build up, provided we don't have to swap the transmission, but in either case, whether we keep this transmission or we swapped out to a built unit, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to put in a much beefier, probably a Mag High-Tech transmission pan. Very, very similar to the pan we put on our four-wheel drive unit there. So when we do that, it'll come with a whole new pan, all new gaskets, so on and so forth. There's their instructions. And just to show you this here, maybe you can see it. So they show you the difference between the two filters. So this is your two-wheel drive pump filter here on the left-hand side. This is your four-wheel drive filter. And you'll notice the two-wheel drive filter, this snout is a bit more shallow, plus it's a bit further down than what it is in the four-wheel drive. That's why if you're going to use a four-wheel drive pan, if it'll fit your model, you got to make sure you use the appropriate filter. And they give you some more differences of it. You can see that two-wheel drive pan there. You can see the four-wheel drive pan here has a much more shallower section up front, but a deeper part in the back. And you can actually see that on this pan here. You can see the front of it's very shallow and it deepens up quite a bit as you get further back. And when we get the old pan off, we'll compare it next to this one so you get a better idea. Now they make a note in here, if you read this instructions, that I don't know if maybe they decided not to follow through with it, maybe they're still working on it, but at least Wix makes a statement in here in their instructions that they're supposedly working on a universal pan that'll work on both the two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive applications. And finally, we've got our replacement spin-on filter. And we'll be using a new tool to get that off. You can spin these off by hand. They're no different than a standard engine oil filter. Sometimes they could be a bit tight if they've never been removed. And I reached out to JM3, who makes these really nice custom oil filter wrenches. Reached out to him, let him know what I was dealing with here, and he gave me the appropriate size to order off his website. And I'll put a link in the description to his website, but we're going to use this to help us take this off here. So more about this. Like I said, I like these things. They're custom built, powder coated oil filter wrench removal tools, and he has them in a group of sizes and different colors. And if he doesn't have one listed on his website to fit the particular filters that you're looking for, just send him an email with what you're looking for, and he can tell you the appropriate size one to purchase. And if it's not one that he normally carries, he can custom make you just about any size that you're looking for. So when we get started on this, I'm going to start just by getting all this old RTV sealant off of this pan, and then we'll go underneath and start loosening up our bolts to crack our old pan free. And as you've seen me do in several other videos, this is what we're going to use to drain our fluid into. These are just these concrete mixing tubs that you can get at pretty much any hardware store like Lowe's, Home Depot, things of that nature. These come in really handy because you can see how long they are, and we don't have to worry about making sure the pan's in the right spot or jostling the pan around. We can get this underneath the entire length of the transmission pan and just crack it loose and just let it drip in the pan and not have to worry about it hitting the driveway. But you'll see more of that here in a short. So let me get to work to cleaning this pan up, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So hopefully you can see that there. Kind of have to hold the camera at an angle because there's just not a lot of clearance here. We're removing our pan bolts from our transmission pan, as you can see here,
and just in the process of getting these bolts cracked loose. We're going to leave the back ones, we'll loosen the back ones up, but we're going to leave them in there just to kind of help catch the pan, so the pan just all of a sudden just doesn't drop and make a mess everywhere. You can see we've got our drip pan or concrete mix pan, however you want to call it, below it. But I wanted to show you this one in case you're doing this particular job, where you can see where the exhaust runs over this transmission pan. Makes get to that bolt kind of a little bit difficult. It's too long of a reach to get a deep well in there, because what happens is with the deep well, and this is just a 1/4 inch set, but the deep well, you can't get the socket all the way on the bolt. Now if you're careful with it, you might still be able to get that bolt crack loose without breaking free, but you can see it hits the exhaust right there, which is kind of annoying. So I even tried a shallow well. The shallow well will fit, just to show you that. But even if you put an elbow on it, you can't get a sharp enough bend to get around the exhaust. But on this Milwaukee set of shallows, you can see that these 1/4 inch sockets have a flat on them where you can actually put a wrench. So what I was able to do is just put that up on there, sneak a wrench in the space that was left, and get this to crack loose. So far that's been the only pain on this one. It may be, looks like on the opposite side we might have a little bit more room, but we'll see when we get over there, and if it becomes the same issue I'll make a mention of it. So just kind of keep that in mind, that even a swivel doesn't make getting this one that easy to get to, but it can be done. So we're going to continue to work on getting these bolts crack free, and then we'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. Well, as you can see by the sheer amount of mess, that did not drain according to plan. Anyway, so, well, you know, things happen. Hopefully you can see that there. We do have it draining now, but as I was working on that pan, cracking it loose, we did leave one bolt in the back, like I mentioned, to hold the pan in place. Unfortunately, the entire driver's side of that pan let go, and the drainage pan, unfortunately, wasn't quite in the right spot to catch it all. So we ended up with a little bit of a spill, unfortunately, here in the driveway. But thankfully, I own a number of cats, and they still use standard clay litter in their boxes. So, presto, one bag of nice fresh clean kitty litter. Cat litter does an amazing job at soaking up spills. So I'm going to continue to just kind of let this soak up, and of course we'll have to move the truck out of here to get this cleaned up, but I'm just going to leave this covered with cat litter for now to soak up our mess, and finish getting the rest of our pan off, and then we can address getting our 2 filters out there. But again, I want to get the rest of that pan off, and then let it just continue to kind of drip drain like it's doing now, and then we'll go from there. I want to say we probably lost about I'd say a couple quarts of old fluid on the ground, but what I'm seeing so far, what's draining out of it kind of looks like the same type color that came out of the 09 when we did it earlier, with the exception of, you know, I didn't lose a couple quarts on the ground when we did that one. But either way, like I said, it doesn't look too terrible. It doesn't smell burnt. It smells just like standard ATF4. If you've ever dealt with ATF4 before, or at least it's something I've kind of noticed, it has a really peculiar smell. It's kind of like a gear oil-ish type smell, but it doesn't smell like standard transmission fluid either. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of unique. But there you go. Like I said, we're draining, and don't worry, we've got some brake clean that we're going to come through here once we get everything disconnected right before final assembly. We'll clean off our cross brace there and our exhaust and all that, just so we don't deal with a potential smoking problem. But I'm going to work on getting a little bit more cat litter on our mess here, as you see, and then I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see we've got our pan removed at this point, and I'm not seeing any big hunks of metal. As you can see, the fluid looks still mostly red, which means it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't look burnt, it doesn't look heavily used. Now, it could just mean that at least maybe the fluid has been serviced in this transmission since we received it. Like I said, you'll see clutch material in there, and you can see it on the end of my fingers. You definitely have some buildup of clutch material on the magnet, you know, but that would be completely normal. It does, like I said, it does have 100-something thousand miles on it at this point, so I would expect to see just, you know, normal wear of clutch material, but I don't see an excessive amount in the pan. I only see it on the magnet. Of course, that's the magnet's job, is to keep it, you know, to collect it and pull it and keep it out of the fluid as much as it can. But the more importantly, I'm not seeing any big hunks of metal inside of this. So what I'm going to do next is, once that finishes draining, we'll take the filters off, and then we'll take a look at the filters as well, and just kind of see what they're all about. Actually, no, I need to leave the drain pan in place. So I'll take the filters off with the drain pan in place. I'll show you that here real quickly once we scoot back underneath. But typically it's just a Torx bit for that holds the back of the filter for the transmission pump, fluid pump, in place. And then of course the screw-on filter is just that. It's just screws in place, just like a standard engine oil filter would. But so far so good. And then what we'll do is I'm gonna recycle this magnet. However, I'm gonna pull this out because it doesn't exist in the four-wheel drive pan, so that magnet must have gone elsewhere upon its removal. So what I'm gonna do is we'll fish that out when the time comes to it, and we'll put that into our four-wheel drive pan. But obviously, yes, as you saw here, and I didn't cover this before I did this, is that you can drop this pan and do both filters without having to drop that cross member exhaust that you saw go across the bottom part, or the lower portion part of this pan, which is why on these pans, even on the four-wheel drive pans, it's so much skinnier up front here than it is back here. It's because it has to account for having that clearance and having the exhaust go underneath. So what should happen here, and we'll compare our two pans, is that the thickness of the four-wheel drive pan on this side should be pretty similar. But as we get down towards this area, and I believe it's possibly this little indentation here, kind of will deepen up a little bit and kind of give us a little bit deeper pan in this area again for that fluid capacity. So I'm going to go underneath and start to work on getting those filters out. I'll bring you along and show you that as best I can. Let me go get a shop light because it's getting kind of dark in there as it gets lighter out here. And I'll bring you right back. One moment. And welcome back. Well, I have to confirm a couple things, but then I'll show you this. But it looks like this has already been converted to a four-wheel drive drainage pan. And some of you may have already been screaming at the screen at it, but I didn't notice it till I started comparing it to the four-wheel drive pan that I have. Looks to be the same pan. But either way, we'll compare that more here in a bit. But just want to show you, I've already taken the Torx fastener out. And there just went our filter. Well, that wasn't in there very tight. That's kind of alarming. But either way, you saw as it just fell out there, there's a T25 Torx fastener right here. You've got enough clearance that you can get a Torx bit on it between it and the exhaust pipe in order to get that fastener off. And typically, that kind of alarms me, that fell out as easy as it did. Normally those are held in there pretty tight with the pump body seal. So we have a new seal. We're obviously going to replace it, but I definitely want to get up there and take a look at the condition of that and make sure that they actually have the right filter in here. That's kind of concerns me. Let me see if I can get that out here. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. When we get the pan of fluid out here, we'll take a little bit better look at this filter and see if this is aftermarket or if this is Mopar or whose this is, because that kind of concerns me. It fell out of that pump body seal so as easy as it did. So what I'm going to do now is get the, sorry for the camera work here, guys. Like I said, it's confined space because I'm on the ground. I should say guys and gals, my apologies. So I'm going to go get that oil filter wrench. that we just picked up and see if that will help us break this free. This can be done, like I said, but if this hasn't been taken off before ever to service, sometimes those get to be kind of a bear, just like a standard engine oil filter would be. But let me go get the filter wrench for that, and I'll be right back. One moment. And welcome back. So just to show you this here, oh, if I get this back off, there we go. This one does fit fairly well. I emailed JM3 on this and asked if he had one that would fit this specific size, and he was gracious enough to look and found the dimensions of that particular spin-on filter and showed me which one to order. And this is kind of a standard stock size that he carries. I think this is, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I can't remember off the top of my head what he said this had the same diameter of, but it does fit quite well. You can see there's like little divots in the end of this oil filter, as with any other oil filter, and the little teeth on this one, as you can see, go in there quite well, give a hold of it, and it gives it a nice firm grip for you to get in there. Now there is a certain way to use these tools as you kind of get used to it. I don't want to show it here because I'm gonna butcher it, but if you go to JM3's website and other YouTubers, they kind of have examples of this. And from what he said on the instructions, you know, you keep your thumb on the back part here where these two sides have been spot welded together, and you see the spot weld and you see there's more meat there, and I can kind of grab this. I should be able to grab this now and just kind of spin this counterclockwise to get this out. And I tried this a little bit prior to braiding on camera, and it does fit. It does grab it very well, and it's able to grab this and hold on tight enough where I can use this to help give some, you know, mechanical advantage to spin this out of here. And this one is in there fairly tight, just as I figured it would be. Again, just like a standard oil filter that hasn't been removed in a while. And when you put these back in, there is a torque specification for these that Mopar suggests, but it's like any other filter. I believe in Mopar's own instructions they state that you can also kind of get it on there, spin it on. I think they say about 3/4 of a turn after the gasket makes contact. And because again, it's just like standard engine oil filter instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and spin it, continue to spin this, and it's again standard counterclockwise rotation to get this out of here. And once I get this out, I'll bring it back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see that we did get our spin-on filter out. So that wrench does work quite well. Like I said, it does grip it, has no problem gripping it and keeping, you know, suitable enough grip to get that filter to spin free. I'll show you this, but according to the date on the filter, it looks like it's a 2012 vintage filter, which, you know, begs the question as to why this transmission, being a two-wheel drive vehicle, had a four-wheel drive pan on it. Now, there could be a couple of reasons. Maybe someone's already done a service on this and they replaced the pan as well as the valve body pump filter and just put the appropriate filter on it and didn't change that spin-out filter. Or it could also mean that this was close enough in year to when they were making the 2013s and such, they could have just elected to put a four-wheel drive pan in here. Or this transmission's been replaced with a 2012 vintage four-wheel drive version. Maybe this truck has had a transmission swap. Maybe it has, maybe it hasn't. Because the tail shaft housing would be a little bit different, would have to be swapped over between a four-wheel drive and a two-wheel drive. Could also be that when they built this in the factory that maybe they didn't have any transmissions ready to go. They had the two-wheel drive pan equipped, so they just threw a four-wheel drive, what would normally go into a four-wheel drive vehicle, into a two, and like I said, just put the alternate tail housing on the rear of the transmission. Either way, it is equipped with a four-wheel drive pan and a four-wheel drive pump body filter. So interesting enough. Now, getting back to what we were talking about, the way that filter just kind of fell out of this seal tells me this seal is probably shot. And it wouldn't surprise me, again, being a 2012 vintage, it probably hasn't been changed in 100-something thousand miles. So what we're going to do is get that seal out of there, and kind of, if you've got the appropriate seal removal tool, you can use it. Let me get you a little bit closer up in there to hopefully try and see this, not drip transmission fluid on you from where our filter was at. Right there. So what I've done before with these is just take a little small flat tip screwdriver and kind of grab the outside edge of that seal and get that seal to fold in enough where you can get it to fall out of that bore. Just want to be mindful that we don't scratch up the inside mating surface of where that seal is going to set. We just want to be careful that we don't gouge or do that. So I'm gonna work on this because it's gonna be hard to show it to you, but I'll show you the aftermath. And then to get the seal in, what I've done before, and I'll show it to you. I believe it's an 18mm socket on kind of a stubby extension. Does a real good job of hitting and matching up to the outside lip, the metal lip of that valve body seal. It works pretty well to get that new seal driven in place. So, and I'm doing this now before putting the new spin-on filter in place, because you can see if you had the spin-on filter in there, you block sideways access to that. So it's easier to do these two operations with this filter removed. You know, just be mindful that when you do remove that filter, this tends to drip for quite a while when you take that out. If you wanted to, you could wait. In this case, and I've done this before, it could take several hours for that drip to finish because that filter is in line with your lines that go to your transmission cooler, so it may take quite a while for that to finish. I'm just going to kind of work around it, to be honest with you. If it drips on me a little bit, then so be it. But I'm going to work on getting that replaced. Once that's replaced, I'll get the new spin-on filter in here, and then we'll see about getting that new valve body filter in place. And then I'll show you what I mean. But once we get that seal replaced and get our new filter in, it should fit a lot more snugly. Again, just with that back screw removed, I've never had one till now that just fell out of the pump body like that. So that's kind of interesting. That's also concerning. Just want to, I hope this hasn't been starved, you know, for fluid. I'm sure it probably had a little bit of a seal problem with that being the case. Either way, I digress. Let me get to work on this. Let me get this old seal out and I'll bring you back. One moment.
And welcome back. So I just want to show you that valve pump body seal. Again, this is a seal that seats up flush with the bottom of the valve pump body. It's not a valve pump. I keep saying valve pump body. It's actually the transmission oil pump body. It may be called valve pump body. Either way, this seats on the bottom of the transmission where the pump is that hooks into that filter we were looking at earlier. And you can see what we did with a screwdriver. Again, we just kind of caved the seal in on itself just a little bit, just enough to get it to loosen up, and generally it will fall right out of its mounting position. But on the area that we didn't bend here, this rubber is stiff, and I mean really stiff. It's not very pliable anymore, which is more than likely the reason why that filter fell out as easy as it did. I'm not saying anybody did or didn't do anything, but it could also be that if this transmission's been serviced before, and you are allowed to do this per manufacturer specs, is that when you change that filter out, if this seal is still good, the book dictates you can reuse it. So it could very well be that this transmission has been serviced, and at the time this didn't need to be replaced, but with the additional age on it, it just doesn't have that you know, gripping capacity on that seal on the neck of that filter as it once did. But we're going to work on getting the new one in. And again, just to show that to you here, the new one came in the kit. It's a Wix filter, or Wix seal. So this is the Wix seal, and this is the seal we took out, just kind of side by side. It's got the same depth of metal ring on it. Looks like the same depth of rubber material on the seal itself. So let me get there's the socket. Let me grab the socket and kind of show you what I'm going to do here to get this installed. So this is a 17 millimeter socket. And if we look at where that socket hits, you can see that 17 millimeter socket does a very nice job of setting right on this outer metal lip. So should do a really nice job of driving that seal into that bore for us. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of this. I'll bring you back and kind of show you it done. And I did buy an extra one of these seals in case something goes sideways with this one, or if it bends or something along that nature, then we got a potential spare. But I'm going to work on getting this in. Like I said, I'll bring it back. You're not going to miss much. I'm literally just going to, again, use this as a seal driver. And what I want to do is drive this in until this lip, this metal shoulder there, is flush up against the pump body. So I'll bring it right back. 1 minute. And welcome back. So you can see that we've got our new pump body seal in. And just like if you've ever driven in other seals, especially seals that have that metallic shoulder on them, that and valve stem seals, things of that nature, you'll hear a tone change. Once that seal bottoms out and this metal lip or metal shoulder, this seal hits the metal part of the pump body, you'll hear it distinctly change, especially if you're using a method like I did where you're kind of using the socket to drive it in place. You'll hear it kind of go from a dull metal ting to kind of a high-pitched metal ting to like a dull metal ting, but you'll definitely hear it change, and that's kind of your indication that that seal has bottomed out to the pump. And what I'm doing right now is just kind of feeling with my fingernail all the way around it to make sure it's seated, and it feels nice and seated. Yeah, it feels like it's in there. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now that we've got that in there, what we're going to do next is get our screw-on filter reinstalled. Again, just like I did pre-lube the seal on it, in case you're wondering. We're going to wipe that mating surface off the best we can, and yes, it is still actively dripping, but it'll be fine. And then when it seats up, we're going to treat that like we would anything else. We're just going to, again, tighten it the same method that we would tighten up a standard oil filter, which I'm not going to use a tool to do it because that'd be too much torque. We're literally just going to get it hand tight until the seal seats, and I'll probably turn it about maybe half to 3/4 of a turn from there and stop. That's all all these spin-on filters generally need. Again, they're really treated no different than like an engine oil filter would be. But that being said, okay, what I want to do next is get that mating surface cleaned up and get our new spin-on filter in place, and I'll bring you back. 1 moment. And welcome back. So now that we've got our spin-on filter in place, and I'll show you that here in the next segment or two, we can get our drip pan out now. And as you can see, it's dark. I mean, it's not as bright cherry red as new fluid would be, but it doesn't look horrible. On the same breath, it still looks largely red. And just want to show this to you, so again, further evidence that this was running a four-wheel drive filter. And you can see the new filter there in the back, and then right behind the passenger tire. That is a four-wheel drive filter, so that was the proper filter for the filter body. And oh, look at that. I just now noticed that. I didn't see that originally. That filter is split. And that didn't happen when we took it apart. Interesting. That's why it fell out of its holder so easily. So interesting enough, what's been happening is that rather than it picking up fluid through that spout like it was supposed to, it's been picking up fluid hopefully through that split you see there. Because if not, if there wasn't enough fluid in here, that means this transmission would have been starving for oil. So hopefully it was able to still get sufficient enough lubrication through there. Wow, yeah, I did not, and if that was in the previous shot of the camera, I completely missed it. But yeah, you can see that filter housing's been all buckled up and bowed. I wonder if someone attempted to put a two-wheel drive pan
on this transmission at one point and broke the filter in the process. Interesting. Either way, I mean, it does have the correct pan on it now. It did have the correct filter, except for that, you know, blown apart seal. Interesting. Okay. Well, it's a good thing we got in here and looked at this. Now, it may also make the transmission suspect. If it's been running, you know, slightly starved for lubrication, then we might just want to consider dropping this transmission and putting a rebuild in when we do the engine, because that is going to leave a lot of lingering question marks. So we're really going to have to get in there and drive this thing once we get our fluid replaced, just to make sure we don't have any issues. But yet again, by the end, that's why we're doing this maintenance, because we don't know the condition of, you know, what this truck was like prior to us getting it. So interesting. Yes, and you know, there's a nice lubricated pry bar for you from when that pan dropped and started spilling fluid like the Valdez all over the driveway. Oh well, at least that's protected from rust now. So what we're going to do next is get this filter reapplied or reinstalled. And typically before I reinstall the filter, put that part of the filter neck into that seal, pump body seal. What I usually like to do, that's what I meant to say earlier, pump body, not valve pump body, but pump body. I usually like to take a little bit of transmission fluid and kind of just lubricate that seal before putting the new filter in place. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that. And again, it's just held in by the rear by that T25 Torx. So I'm going to get that in place, and then I'll bring you right back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see that we've got our new valve body filter. It's not how I keep saying valve body. I'm sorry. It's pump body filter, or pump filter in place. And what we're going to do next, go ahead and secure it. But you can see, and I've got it resting on the exhaust, but you can see just the kind of the strength of that seal is generally enough to hold them there until you want to reach up in there and kind of pull them back out. But as you can see, we got a little bit of space issue, but remember, we can get in there with a 1/4 inch ratchet and a 1/4 inch Torx bit to get that Torx screw, this one, put back in place. And there is a torque value on this. I don't have it readily off the top of my head because I don't have my printouts with me. But I'm going to go ahead and work on getting this put back in, tightened up, and then we should be able to clean up the remnants of the bottom of our pan here, or area for our pan, and go ahead and get our pan or our gasket in place and prep for filling our fluid back up. We do have, again, I wanted to show you this, we do have our spin-on filter in place. I went about half a turn after the gasket made contact. It really didn't want to go any tighter than half a turn, and I'll show it to you, but I'll show you a Mopar filter instructions where it says that it either gives you a torque value, or it says once the gasket seats, no more than 3/4 of a turn maximum. So that's nice and tight, it's secure. I'm happy with that being a half a turn at this point. And then let me get this other filter fastened, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And then welcome back. So this is the pan that we've removed, if you remember, and this is our replacement pan, which we thought this was a 2-wheel drive pan. It's not. You can clearly see it side by side, plus obvious evidence that we took out with the type of filters they were running. This is clearly a 4-wheel drive pan. And that's a piece of grass. I thought it was a piece of debris. It's not. Well, it is debris, but it's not metal. So we went ahead and took our magnet out of this one and cleaned it up and put it in our new pan. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the pan that came off of our 2016 4-wheel drive, or 2500, because it's the same pan, and we've already got this one cleaned up with all the remnants of the RTV and everything removed. And went ahead and just, again, that small bit of rust that you saw in that corner, a little bit of Scotch-Brite, a little bit of brake clean, took that out. No issue at all. And again, it's clearly the same pan. Since this one's cleaned up and ready to go, we're gonna get this one reinstalled, with the exception of, and I know some people don't like these, but I'm gonna go back in here with a gasket on this rather than just gobbing this thing full of RTV and getting that to seat up. I like these seals a little bit better, again, because it's not as messy with the RTV. I don't have to worry about too much excess, you know, peeling off the inside and getting clogged up in the filter, as well as if you don't drop the exhaust and you got only so much space between the bottom of this pan and the exhaust to play with, that having RTV on here, although it can be done, makes it a bit tricky not to touch the RTV up against something until you get this in place in the bottom of the transmission. Whereas if you got one of these gaskets, as you can see, it's a lot easier to deal with. So I'm going to work on getting this gasket in place. I'm just going to probably put a couple of pan bolts through this to hold this in place until we get them started, and then we'll get them all started and work on getting them torqued down, and then we'll be ready for fluid fill. But I'll bring you back in a moment. And welcome back. So we got our pan back on. Show that to you here real quick. And got to bend the camera, forgive the noise. You can see we got our pan back in place. There we go. Give everything, it's still drying, but give everything a nice wipe down / spray with some brake parts cleaner, just to clean up any residual that may have been still spilled on this cross pipe of an exhaust, just so we don't get any smoking. So just in the process of getting everything refilled. And generally what I like to do on these is fill them until they get up to the cold mark. Start it and then check it while it's running, and if it goes down in the add area, add in more fluid, and just add until, you're probably not going to be able to see this on this stick, but your add is right here at the first dot. Your cold mark is right here. Your cold range is between this second dot and this third dot, and this is your hot range up here. So what I like to do is just fill, engine not running, until I'm probably up to where this cold dot is at, or maybe just a little bit over. Then we'll start it, let it run for a little bit, and then we'll check our dipstick reading. And if we're down here in the add, obviously we're add, or if we're down below the cold, I'll usually like to add in the cold range until maybe about halfway up the stick, and then just stop, and then take it for a drive cycle, or let it sit here and heat up until it gets to operating temperature, and then check it and make sure that when we're hot, we're in the operating temperature, that we're in this hot area. If we're not in this hot area, then I'll add more fluid until we get up into this hot area, because we just want to make sure that we've got the adequate amount of fluid in here. Now, according to the book, I think the book says about 4 to 5 quarts if you do what we did here, which is just drop the lower pan and change the filters. Now normally, that's the other reason why I like to use these tubs, is that if you can get them on a flat enough surface, you got a little indicator right here at the end. It's probably going to be hard for you to see, but it gives you the US gallons and liters kind of here on the side, so you can kind of get a good idea of how much fluid you took out. Now be mindful, unfortunately, since we recreated a little bit of an oil spill in the driveway when we did this, we don't have an accurate number. So I'm going to start with the 4 to 5 quarts the book says that you should need for this job. Then we'll check the stick like I described accordingly and kind of go from there. And so I'm going to go ahead and start filling this full of fluid, and I'll bring you back in a moment. And welcome back. So we're still in the process of filling. I'm going to go to quart number 5. We're about 4 quarts in, and we're not even up on the stick yet, and as far as the add range is concerned. So we're going to go for a little bit. Now I've got to keep in mind we are in a little bit of a decline, so the back of the transmission is a little bit lower. It's not exactly level where we're parked, so we're going to keep that in mind. But it did say 4 to 5 when we were doing this type of service. So again, we're going to dump in the 5th quart, we're going to recheck, and once we finally get again out of this add range in here and get up into the cold range, then we'll start it and we'll go from there. One moment, I'll bring you right back. And welcome back. So put 5 quarts in, and just so you can see on the stick here, we're right about here, not quite up to hot. Now, yes, that does look excessively high on the stick considering the transmission is cold, but remember, we replaced that spin-on filter, so there's going to be a portion of that last 5th quart we added in that's going to go into that spin-on filter. So again, it's no different than an engine oil filter. So I'd probably say maybe about half a quart, maybe more, is going to get absorbed into that spin-on filter once it starts circulating fluid. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and start it, let it run at idle for a little bit, and come back and check our fluid. And in this particular case, in case you're curious, it does have instructions on the dipstick itself that are etched in here as far as when to not add fluid. Basically what they're saying is do not add oil if level is between lower holes for cold oil 70 degrees Fahrenheit or upper holes for hot oil 180. So again, we're going to start it. We should see this level drop. Then we're going to let it, we're going to check it, make sure that we're not down in here into the add range. If we are, when it's cold, we'll add and we'll get it to come up at least into this cold range again, and then we'll stop and kind of let it come up to temperature and check it once the transmission gets up to proper temp for a final check. So I'm going to go ahead and start it, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can hear we got the things running. We had to add in a 6 quart, and you're probably hard to see it on the camera, but we're right about here in our range. So we're above add, we're just slightly into the cold area. So what we want to do now is just kind of let it run, get up to operating temperature, and check it when it's hot. And what we'll also do is that not only will we let it just sit here and run and check it, we'll also take it for a little bit of a rip after this. Maybe drive it down to recycle its own old transmission fluid, and then once it's nice and hot, we'll get it back up in here and we'll check it one last time. But for now, again, that we're looking at, we added 6 quarts of fluid, again, just to get it up in here in this area above add, slightly into the cold on that fresh start, and now it's just a waiting game. So I'll bring you right back. One moment. And welcome back. So I got you in here in the garage right now. We're just looking at the bench because right after we took it for a trip just to drop off the old transmission fluid to be recycled, it started to rain pretty heavily. So I can't bring you outside and show you the conclusion, but I can say that we did check the fluid. Everything looks fine after taking it for a short drive. And I went back and looked at the specifications on it. And for this make, model, and year with the 65 RFE, which is what we have, the 4x4 application says that the service, so just doing the drain, the filter replacements, and the refill, should be right about 6.5 quarts. And that's what we ended up using after all was said and done, right at about 6.5 quarts. And I'm going to contribute that to being the fact that it does have a 4x4 pan on it instead of a 4x2 pan on it. The 4x2 pan, I think the book said it would be roughly about 5.5 quarts with the 4x2 versus the 4x4. So yeah, it looks like you probably get right about an extra quart capacity having that 4x4 pan on it. So if you don't already have that pan, obviously you can use a 4x4 pan. You just have to be mindful that you're also using the right filter. The pump filter on the inside is different. Now the Wix kit that we used worked out fine. So far, no issues with it. And just to recap, that came with the spin-on filter, the pump filter, as well as the gasket for the pan. It's for the transmission pan, as well as this seal here, which was that seal that we installed into the pump body itself. Now this is a Mopar seal, but it pretty much looks identical to this one. In case you're curious, the Mopar part number for that pump body seal, for where that filter goes into, it's a part number there. I bought this extra one again, like I said earlier in the clip, in case something happened with the install of this one. You know, we weren't waiting to get another one of these in. But everything in that Wix kit works fine. I'll put a link in the description to that below. The fluid that we used in this video, because I forgot to comment on that, the fluid that we ended up using, which is over here still, happened to be just Valvoline ATF +4. No real rhyme or reason. Just a couple things. It is say that it is licensed for ATF4 and ATF3 applications, and you'll see that it is recommended for most Chrysler, Dodge, and Jeep and other FCA vehicles. Plus, I was able to actually get a hold of this via Rock Auto and have them ship it. So that's, again, just a few reasons why we went with this one. Seemed to work out just fine. Again, you can see we used about a little bit more, maybe about a little bit more than half a quart there, plus an entire 6-pack. So again, right about 6.5 quarts for the fluid exchange. And as we discovered on this one, this is the pan that we took off of that truck. Again, with just a magnet missing because I used the magnet and installed it in the pan that we reinstalled. There's nothing wrong with this pan. It's perfectly fine. So we're just going to keep a hold of it as a spare in case we do run into another need for an additional pan. Plus, it's fun to, peel the old RTV sealant off of it. Let's see. And that is about it. As you can see, it's not that bad of a job. It is 100% doable. You can do it in the driveway, as we just showed here with standard hand tools. It can get a little bit messy, so I strongly advise the use of these, again, larger concrete mixing trays that you can pick up at any home improvement store, Lowe's, Home Depot, things of that nature, whatever you have in your area. If you go to the concrete section, you should be able to find these large mixing tubs, and like I said, they do a phenomenal job of catching everything, provided that unlike me, when you first crack that pan loose, it's actually in the right position. But we did get our mess cleaned up out there as well. And as you saw, that fluid was pretty dirty. Now, interesting enough, I did look it up on the service notes as well. And they even commented that, even Mopar comments that their ATF4 fluid does have a rather distinct odor to it, as well as that bright red color that you see is, according to Mopar, actually dyed into the fluid. And it is normal for that fluid to kind of start to turn a darker red / brown as it ages. And you can tell by what we drained out, it was pretty dark. It was getting on the fairly dark brownish side of it. Matter of fact, when I went to recycle it and I was dumping it into the auto parts recycling bin, the guy looked at me and says, "You sure that's transmission fluid?" He swore up and down just by how dark it was that it was engine oil. But with that being said, again, I'll put links in the description to the Wix kit that we used, as well as I'll put this part number in there in case you need just that pump body seal. And what else was there? Just the kit, as well as the JM3. I'll put a link to their website where you can order those custom-made oil filter wrenches in case you find yourself in a need for a set of them, or just a particular size of one. But with that being said, hopefully you found this information helpful. We are still gathering parts in to start in prep for pulling the engine and doing the performance updates. Don't worry, that is coming. But with that being said, if you have not subscribed, please consider doing so. For those of you that have, thank you very much. For those of you who have not, please consider giving that button a little bit of a click. As well as, from what I'm being told, make sure you have notifications turned on as well. That way you're alerted when we update new ones. And that's all I ask of this at this point. I've had a lot of individuals ask me how they can help support the channel. And I have looked into it, but I'm not considering, at least at this point in time, of doing any kind of channel memberships, things of that nature. I mean, times are tough now the way that it is, and job uncertainties and things of that nature. Really, the best thing that you can do, and it's absolutely free for you to do, is if you see an ad pop up, just let the ad run rather than skip it. If you skip it, then we don't get any of the ad revenue, even though the ones that you can skip will typically play like the first 5 or so seconds, so you get an idea of what the product is, and then it allows you to skip. And from my understanding, even if you click the skip button at that point, the creators themselves get nothing for it. So again, it's free. It's one thing you can do. Doesn't cost you anything. But with that being said, I do thank you, and I will bring you back for the next one. Thank you much.